Freedom. Freedom. Freedom over fame. Freedom over cycle stays the same.
Welcome back, my bandits.
You're just trying something new every week now, aren't you?
I am trying some things. Well, eventually, I want to make t-shirts. So,
all right,
maybe they're not Swifties, but they could be bandits.
I don't hate it.
It sounds fun,
I like it
right?
better than band baddies.
Band baddies. Well, one day we'll do like a vote and we'll see maybe if anybody's interested. I really just I love the idea of having a t-shirt that says bandits on it.
Cool. We could just do that too.
Yeah, that's true. But it's got to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be attached to the project, to the podcast, to the people.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back to Band Together, a podcast where we dive into banned books that are really interesting, and we just want to cliff note them for you, for anyone who doesn't have access to them. My name is Adri.
And I'm Gina Macrina, the co-host of all co-hosts.
So this week we read The Handmaid's Tale. Super fucking stoked. I was really excited to read this. I'd watched the show beforehand, so we won't be referencing the show in this, but I did watch the show, and it was even... I know that this is not uncommon, but it was so much better than the show. The show's great.
Ugh. I haven't watched the show yet. I'm a little sensitive, guys. I'm a little sensitive about violence in my visuals. I really believe that the stuff that we let go into our eyeballs, to our minds, to our ears has an effect on our bodies. So when I see lots of physical violence and stuff, I try to avoid it. I am going to watch it now because the book was amazing.
Such a beautifully written book. Just the way that Margaret Atwood paints the picture she wants you to see in your mind, it's so vivid. It didn't feel like reading. It felt like stepping into the world she was creating.
Which is why we read, right? Like, I've read a decent amount of books that have carried me away, which to me, that's the bread and butter of reading, is when you get carried away. The way that she writes, she's a beautiful, beautiful writer. And she definitely weaves in really particularly tantalizing vocabulary. Like, but she sprinkles it in.
Yeah, it's really good. Really, I know that sounds biased. I know we were like raving last time about the book we read and then this time, but really it's just so fun to listen to different writing styles. And again, she just has this ease to the way that she's painting pictures as they're unfolding, just creating an environment like you're there with the characters. It's almost palpable. It's really good.
Palpable is the word that I would definitely utilize for this book. It's a beautiful symbolism, and I am somebody who I watch movies searching for symbolism. I read books searching for symbolism. And this whole book is...
Oh my God, we have so much to talk about.
So much meat.
I'm so fucking pumped.
So much meat. And we were both really excited. Both of us are feminists, obviously. I don't know if that's obvious, but it should be. We were both really excited about this book as feminists and just as people who are living in the wake of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. It was something that we marched for. It is something that is still a really big deal to our hearts. And you have this novel. As soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, people cited this work, and she wrote it way before it was overturned.
When was it written? It was published in 1985.
That checks out, especially because the timeline of the book, she references the 80s a lot as to like how it used to be. It used to be like this, and then it turned into this. So that time frame matches up. No, go for it.
So for anyone not familiar with the book or the show, you've probably heard about The Handmaid's Tale. So super brief synopsis is it's a futuristic dystopian novel by Canadian author Margaret Atwood. It was published in 1985. It's a near future New England in a patriarchal, white supremacist, totalitarian state known as the Republic of Gilead, which overthrew the US government in this sense. So it's set in the US, but it's not the US anymore. And it's supposed to be set, I think she said like the early 2000s, technically. So, just what our life could have been or will be in a couple of
It
years.
will not be. It will not be that. Actually, the whole time I was reading it, even though it is, I feel like humanity really likes to fantasize about struggle and different oppression, and I'm not discrediting the oppression that is present right now. I just don't think we're on the energetic plane of this to happen. Look,
Listen. I get it. I believe you. I believe you.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like 5%. There's a little spark that I don't know. The thing that gives me hope, and this is so stupid,
No.
is like watching The Rock and Oprah do that video where they're like asking for money from everyday folks for the Maui Relief Fund.
Right.
And no one is giving them fucking money.
Or
and
they
that
have-
gives me hope.
Yeah, that we're all like
Onto them.
we're calling them on their bullshit. We're calling them on their bullshit because, first of all, Oprah, billionaire, and I know that multi-billionaire, richest woman in the United States. I don't know about the world.
The Rock is worth $80 million on his own.
Right. They could literally shit out $10 million and they would never feel it in their immediate eyes. And I love The Rock.
And so do I, and it bums me the fuck out.
It hurt all of our hearts to see him in the back of that video behind Oprah in silence, kind of shaking his head up and down, and them asking us for money.
The fucking audacity. The comments were so good, though.
The comments were worth it. I'm happy that they posted it just for the comments.
Yeah.
It made my fucking week because fuck you, motherfuckers. Like, seriously. Fuck you guys. Are you joking me right now?
Right. Well, she owns like 2,000 acres of land in Maui.
Why don't you just help them?
It's less than what burned down. If you really want to do something, give up your fucking land.
Or just give them money. You've got the fucking money. There was a time period where we all fucking loved Oprah. Everybody was on Oprah. You're so awesome.
When
She's
she
so
was
amazing.
doing Super Soul Conversations, the podcast, and she had The Rock. It's to this day still one of my favorite podcasts because he's so like vulnerable and it's just so good. It's like his story. And I thought about that when I saw that fucking video and I was like, are you guys for real right now? Like he came from nothing. She came from nothing. And they have the nerve, the gall in this economy.
The audacity.
The audacity. No.
They should know better. They should have a PR person at least. If you're that out of touch.
How do they not have someone on their team? How do you both listen to me? Listen to me. How do neither one of them do just like a quick vibe check of the room?
We're pretty far disconnected from struggle as we have been out of it for the latter part of 2 decades, at least. Definitely
right after
for
the
Oprah.
fire, I don't know if I ever shared this with you. I don't think I did because I was super fucking annoyed when I saw it. Right after the fires happened, there weren't supposed to be cameras inside of one of the, I think it was like a school or something that they were using as like a
the one
shelter.
where she was passing out pillows.
She was passing out pillows. She was like, I went to Costco and I got pillows and sheets. And I'm like,
well, and they had to turn her camera crew away.
and yet she still recorded it. And she quoted Dolly Parton in that fucking video with The Rock. And I'm like, have you noticed that Dolly Parton isn't out there going like, look how much money I'm giving, and also give some of your own. She just does it because she's a good person.
Well, also, I don't know of them committing to give any of their own money.
No, they've committed to $10 million and then open the fund to the public.
Right.
So whatever we don't give, they're going to pay out of pocket.
So obviously,
just fucking let them pay for it.
Why not just donate? Why not just donate?
Let them do it. But I'm not paying on their behalf.
No,
And it's tax deductible for them.
yeah, no joke. When we donate to places, we do in-depth research on the places that we're donating to, making sure that's going to go to the right people. Because I'm so sorry, I hope everybody does that. But just because it's a big organization doesn't mean that it's got integrity. In fact, there's a lot of not-for-profits. Actually, the NFL is a nonprofit.
What?
Mm-hmm. If you look it up, the NFL is a nonprofit. Sometimes
I didn't know that.
Yeah, sometimes these companies will manipulate the system in order to get the proper tax breaks.
That's annoying.
Right. So that being said, before you donate to places, and especially to multimillionaires / a billionaire who are requesting your money, make sure you know where it's going to go. I know that there's something suspicious with people who have that much money asking me for money.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, we can look at it like, oh, maybe they can't donate $10 million to every disaster. But
No, but it's like her literal backyard.
Right. She has
The Rock
property.
is Samoan.
Right. If I was a billionaire, I can tell you this very confidently. If I was a billionaire, I wouldn't think twice. And the only reason that I would pull a stunt like that is if I was going to match the donations.
Mm. Yeah, because they didn't even say that.
Right. So honestly, shame on you guys. I'm so happy that
Shame upon your household.
No, maybe not your household.
No, your
Listen.
household.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of witchy words or what could happen to their whole household, but
Shame on your household. And so it is.
I don't put that on you, and so it's not.
Pussy.
But no, seriously, shame on you guys. I'm so proud of we the public for not falling for it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was a time, particularly in the 80s, when celebrities were held up on a pedestal like gods.
Dude, think back like 4 years.
Even still very relevant. I feel like pre-COVID,
It's like pre-COVID and post-COVID is a different world.
it's true. And I'm so proud of us, and I hope that we continue. And the people out there doing work, like people who are really charitable, from my understanding, Keanu Reeves is very charitable, but he's a sweet angel baby that blessed this earth while we were still living in it, you know? People like that, like they don't go around doing this and filming it. They just do it. So the only motivation for people to film it is if you're going to match those donations, and then you're generating obviously double the donations. Other than that, you're just trying to show off your efforts. Unnecessary. Shame on you guys. We want better. I expect better.
Mm-hmm.
Try again. Moving back to the book. As we're talking about this book and we bring up things like Gilead, which it's called the Republic of Gilead in the book, it's super heavily influenced by a puritanical Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
which in our political climate right now, I feel like there's a lot of extremists who really resonate with the Republic of Gilead. And they might not be a super high percentage of the population, but there's enough to where it's scary.
I think there's a lot of them.
I'm not saying there's a small amount. I just don't think there's as many as the rest of us who are sane.
I think that's true.
They've just been given the ability to make really big decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I love your heart and I love your optimism. The writing of the book aside, and how good the writing was, narrating this like really interesting, captivating, like has you coming back to the book. We were literally looking for time to read this book.
We were excited. We were listening to it together even.
Yeah, it was really good to listen to. But all of that aside, the parallels that I see to our life today and the parallels that Margaret Atwood made really are startling. So let's just dive in. I'm going to jump right off by saying, obviously, there are parallels between Gilead and Christianity. And if you don't believe me on that, or if you're saying that it's extreme and that Christians are the ones that are being persecuted, No. Like,
Mm.
you guys all know, if you've been with the podcast for the last 3 episodes, I was raised Jehovah's Witness. I read the Bible cover to cover as a kid. Then I read it again cover to cover when I was in college. And then I've read it again since then. And when I was in college was really the first time I was diving into it with open eyes, I guess is the best way to say it,
Mhm.
because up until then I had memorized passages from the Bible, and it really isn't. I mean, it's just so wild and kind of hilarious to me how Christians oftentimes talk about indoctrination, like, oh, they're indoctrinating our kids into this, or the woke left is doing. No, Christianity is indoctrinating people. Literally. That's what they do. And so to listen to not only just the blessed be the fruit, may the Lord open is in Deuteronomy, she was so smart in the way that she was pulling specifically straight from the Bible and demonstrating how the commander, or the sons of Jacob, as they're called, all of the powerful men of Gilead, are trying to create this like world where they're now able to procreate again, because the world has become so toxic and polluted that women can't have babies anymore, which ironically enough, it's the men who can't have babies.
Mhm.
It's them, it's their sperm count. Not untrue today. We see less and less people having babies, but not because, I mean, yeah, some people can't, and I'm so sorry for the people who can't and who want to, but we're also just choosing it because as women, we're seeing that being in relationship with men is not it. And the funny thing to me was reading it and seeing how these men are forcing women to ritualistically get raped so that they can procreate and have more babies. And we're also seeing today, 2023, men that are out there going, they're so lonely, and men
Oh,
that are
the loneliness epidemic.
the loneliness epidemic, and how there are men out there going, well, we just need to start claiming what's ours.
Mhm.
That's really fucking scary. And no one, I mean, some people are talking about it, and I don't want to be an alarmist, but fuck, dude, like, having dated men, having just existed as a woman in the world, it's scary because you walk around and, at least for me, I always knew I was in some kind of danger. And I fucking love the conversation where they're like, not all men, but we just literally saw a woman get hit in the face with a brick
Mhm.
because she wouldn't give some dude her number.
And there's men standing all around just watching it go
I
down.
just, I know this is a dystopian novel about a hypothetical future, but to me, it doesn't feel that out of reach.
Mm. Well, they just released I think it's called Project 2025 for the
Oh
Conservative
my God,
Party.
yes, I saw that. We
And
didn't even talk about that yet.
right. And they're planning on, if the Conservative Party was to get elected in 2024, they're going to exactly what they did with Roe v. Wade. They're just setting things up for them to fall later. So they're basically just lining out their whole plan and they're gearing it towards the LGBTQ community strongly, because they always do, because how terrible are we that we like to, sit around and read with each other and preach peace. That's not all of us, but truly, you don't hear of many people I can't think of one story from the LGBTQ community where we have been convicted of rape, where we have molested children. Like, those are separate cases, most of the time coming from people in religious authority. And it's super insulting and gaslighty for them to come after us so hard when they're the number one villains of abuse, violence, and sexual assault. How dare you project your bullshit onto us? I'm super offended. And anybody you're just by calling that out, you're trying to indoctrinate kids into thinking that our community is violent, because we're not. And that's statistically backed. But you know who is the most violent group of all history?
The white people.
The white fucking Christians.
No, I mean, you're right.
Look, think about this. I just Googled it and it says that and I went to Christian school. I just want to throw that out there in case anybody doesn't know that.
You remember you went to private school for your dyslexia.
I did go to private school for my dyslexia, but that was Catholic school. And I went to Christian school just because they thought it would be
God.
good for me. What?
Sure. You're still gay.
Yeah, it didn't stop it, right? If anything, it enhanced it.
Mm.
But I just Googled it, and the most popular Christian song is How Great Is Our God. I'm somebody who firmly believes in words affirming things to our bodies and words affirming things to our mind, our soul, our spirits. I think our bodies are always listening. And I think that words, whether or not you're a witchy person, words are spellish. I think you say something like,
No, totally.
if you say something out loud enough, it will become a thing. So that's why I don't punch myself when I get into a fist fight, and I don't call myself names. It's the same concept. So I don't talk down to myself. But that being said, in this song, the lyrics, the chorus is, how great is our God? Sing with me. How great is our God? And all will see. How great is our God? Age to age he stands, at time in his hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. So I could read this whole thing, but essentially, Christian songs in general are very repetitive. They do not have complex lyrics. When we're talking about
Worship?
yes, so particularly with worship,
Mhm.
I think worship songs are the most brainwashy. I think that they're repetitive for a reason, and I think that they use tones very, very intentionally. I think that these things are very intentional. I think they're a big part of the indoctrination because I'll tell you, there's one thing that to this day I still love about Christian churches, and that's worship. But I think it's the thing that gets into your subconscious the easiest.
Well, we watched it together. Do you remember when we watched the Hillsong mega church
Yeah, I
thing?
remember.
Okay, so I went to a church like that. I went to a couple different churches like that in the last 5 years
Hmm.
that definitely had the lights and the smoke and the blah 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 and really intense worship. Like it was like a concert at the beginning.
Right? It's like cool Christianity.
It was like super like the pastor was young and then
Yeah,
there
and
was
they're always dressed really hip. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it's
Like
like they
they
had like
shop
Nikes on.
they shop at Urban Outfitters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first time I went back to church as an adult was when I was about 29,
Hmm.
29-ish. I hadn't been to church in over a decade. And I walked into this small community center and it was a really small little startup church. I think they're still pretty small. They're still around. I don't want to name them. The people were cool, they were really
Yeah.
accepting. But I remember walking in and not really knowing what was going on. So I had kind of like dressed up because I'd only gone to Jehovah's Witness churches
Hmm.
where women aren't allowed to wear pants or anything like that.
Hmm.
And there was a worship song playing, and there's something about the way that the lights happen and the tones of the music, and I just felt like I was being spoken to. But watching that documentary, they were like, no, that's intentional. Basically, they use their congregation, their live congregation, as like vetting for what music is going to be successful because they're also. Hillsong does this, Elevation does it, I think Transformation Church does it. They have now actual bands that are successful aside from the church all on
Yeah,
their own.
they're Christian bands.
Yeah, they're Christian bands and they're huge, but the lyrics are just so intense. Lauren Daigle was one of the artists that I liked a lot when I was going to like Christian churches and stuff. But it's really like, I will trust in you. Like, I can't do it without you. You're my steadfast.
Right.
And I'm not talking shit on people who have faith. Like, my mom totally has faith. She still truly believes. And in the moment, at that time, it was what I needed. I needed to not take responsibility for my life. I needed to trust in something bigger than me.
Hmm.
And I still believe in God. Like, I 100% believe that God is real, but my God doesn't look like the normal Christian God because I don't necessarily believe in a guy in the sky watching down on us. I believe that God, universe, spirit, energy are kind of
All
all
intertwined.
intertwined in one. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe Christians are right. Shit, for all I fucking know, maybe there is a dude in the sky. I don't think so.
Right.
But
I think that there are wonderful and amazing people within all religions, including Christianity. I've been low at times before and definitely gone back to a small Christian church and felt some kind of way when I left there. And usually it was a positive feeling. There have been times, and I've told Adri this story. I went to a small Christian church, and during my, what's it called? Just going to
the sermon?
this sermon. Yeah. So during
Ceremony.
so during the that's how long it's been since I've
Yeah.
really dug in. But during the sermon, they played a whole movie, a little mini movie, and they get these people who are actually like graduated from college. So they're actually pretty good with like their tech and their movie making.
No, they're so smart. Like
It's-
churches today are so smart.
They're advanced. And I'm impressed, to be honest.
Yes.
But they made a whole movie about a girl who she knew that she was gay young. She had already dated women, and she was up there because she had gone through a breakup with a girl, broke her heart, went to church, and
Realized she was straight.
realized that what she was doing was a quote sin,
Right.
and that she wanted to be quote saved from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was her whole story about how her lifestyle was wrong and how one day she was going to find the right man. And maybe that might have been her truth. But everything inside my body made me sick. I thought it was disgusting, and I thought it was very poor taste to put her story on blast like that.
Right.
And as somebody who is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, I walked away from that sermon feeling so misunderstood. I felt so terrible for that young girl. This was a church that I had known of and went to at least a handful of times, because at the time I was going through a breakup. And I went there to feel love, and I left there feeling like shit and feeling like I just went and spent time with a bunch of people who thought that my lifestyle was a sin and that I was something to be fixed. And you can paint your love the sinner, not the sin bullshit all day long. But to me, the Bible is an oversimplification of faith and God. So that people who, like you said, like you didn't want to think about the complexities that was and is God's. You wanted somebody else to take the wheel
Mm-hmm.
and go, yes, okay, so if I do this, this, and that, I'm saved, God loves me, and my life's going to turn out okay. And that's just fine if that's who you are and that's what you want. But if within that practice, if within that faith, you're making other parties feel bad because they don't believe in what you believe, you got to know you're doing something wrong.
Right.
You have to know deep down inside that it's bullshit.
I just the God of Christians. Let me walk a fine line as I say this,
Mm-hmm.
because I hope if there is someone who is very devout in their Christian faith and they're listening to us by chance, I love you. Like, I don't hate you for your faith. The same way I don't hate anyone who believes in Islam or who's Buddhist or whatever religion you choose to have your faith in. Because as someone who experienced the feelings of comfort and reassurance when I was within some sort of faith, I understand how comforting and how maybe not easy, but how reassuring it is to have an outline, a book to go to and go, okay, if I am these things, then I am like a good person. Sorry, I was hitting the Bible. Not like hitting the Bible. I was like tapping my Bible because I still have a Bible. But how does it not in your gut? How does it not turn your stomach to, in Romans, read about all of the good things that the Lord has done for you, and then also completely forget and wipe your memory of that the minute you turn around and look at someone and go, you're a sinner, you're evil, I've never even had people say love the sinner, hate the sin. I've just been around people who have gone, no, no, that's not what God wants. And God made us all.
Mm-hmm.
God made us all. You want to talk about someone who's like very anti-weed, and you're like, that shit is way more natural than the opioids you're putting in your body.
If
Like,
you go to the doctor.
right.
Yeah.
I find so much wrong with man-made Christianity. My beef is not with God. My beef is not with Jesus. He was too woke for the current conservative party. It's this kind of thinking that they are here to save the world, or that they're here to impose their beliefs and their thoughts and what's right. They have an ultimate outline for what's right and what's wrong. And you have to know that that's not how life is. You don't get to just impose your thinking on anyone the same way that people don't want to see, I don't know, they fucking hate seeing people pray in public, but they want prayer in school.
Mm.
They don't want to
Are you
see.
talking about the Muslims?
Yeah,
Right. Well, it's not their religion.
right.
Because only they are right, because that's how egotistical they are. One of the youngest religions, by the way, that has ever been, I believe, Hinduism is one of the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
And heaven forbid you bring up multiple gods, even though this religion is to date like 3 times your age. But
Right.
you're the right one.
Right. But back to the book.
Well, no, I would also like to add something. I actually do not have a problem with Christianity, Catholicism, Hinduism, none of it. All of those are completely equal to me. And I think ultimately the path to finding God, if you do find God, and if you are somebody who is a Satanist or
Atheist.
an atheist, I think all of those are equally acceptable. And I guess in the eyes of Christianity, equally forgivable, because I think that God, or the absence of God, is a part of our journey. I don't throw any shade at the religions. I throw shade at Christians themselves. And not all Christians, because
Yeah.
I have lots of Christian friends that are beautiful humans that take the word and do great things with it, and they let it guide their lives in a humble and nonviolent way.
Yeah.
But we're right now not talking about those Christians. We're talking about like evangelical Christians, or the Christian groups that are behind the conservative party in America right now that are a direct threat to my freedoms and safety. Those are the Christians that I'm referring to. And if any of this book makes you uncomfortable in the way that they portray, because it really did come all from Christian views, that was the inspiration to this story. If any of that makes you uncomfortable, then you should probably look deeper into your own beliefs, thoughts, and feelings, and make sure that you're giving your time to the right establishment. Because for me, and I'm not somebody who knows everything about anything. In fact, I feel like I know nothing. And every time I read a book, I prove that to myself, is that I have so much to learn. But the way that I take God is that him and I are, or she and I, since God is a creator, I do identify with her as female, that she and I are going through life together and co-creating. And there's nothing that I can say or do that will make her hate me, or make me unworthy of love, or needing to change in one direction or not. Because God's a loving God. Jesus was the man. I fucking love Jesus. Big ups to Jesus. So no shade on the Christians. The Christians out there that are just keeping it pushing, doing their thing. But for me over here, I'm co-creating with my God, and I'm just chilling, and you can believe what you want. Remember that the United States began because we were trying to escape religious persecution.
Well, that's what we were told, but maybe we were just religious extremists.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
a thought,
I mean,
just throwing it out there.
it could be. That's a good point. We also escaped religious persecution in the name of murdering a bunch of Native Americans.
Mhm.
So there's that.
So, yeah, Margaret Atwood refers to, or she also points to the election, and I want to just add this on. She references, because again, this was released in 1985 in the midst of the Ronald Reagan presidency, which
Mm.
Ronald Reagan is like the golden boy for all things. It's when they're talking about make America great again, they're thinking of Reagan.
They're like, make America Reagan again.
Right. And he definitely embraced Christian conservatism as an influence for his administration, for his policies, for the things that he implemented. He, as you guys know, or if you don't know, do just like a little quick research on, he maybe not introduced, but definitely encouraged trickle down economics, which we know where we're at with that. That's been disproven. There's just a lot of things that happened during the Reagan presidency that conservatives would really like to bring back. And just to touch on what Gina had mentioned earlier, Project 2025 is sponsored by some of the same organizations that were very much in cahoots with Ronald Reagan. So we're looking at organizations like Moral Majority, Focus on the Family, the Heritage Group.
The Heritage, either group or foundation. And those are the sons of bitches who
The Heritage Foundation.
who helped overturn
Roe v. Wade.
Roe v. Wade.
Mhm.
So they're the ones that have the plan.
Yeah. So when you hear things like Focus on the Family, the Heritage Foundation, the Freedom Alliance, Defending Freedom organization, all super conservative, all incredibly dangerous. And just for shits and giggles, I went to their website. It's project2025.org, and it literally is the one of the very first things you see. It says it's not enough for conservatives to win elections. If we're going to rescue the country from the grips of the radical left, we need both a government agenda and the right people in place ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration. This is the goal of the 2025 presidential transition project. So, living in Southern California, we have someone in who is the board director of one of the school districts in this area who was personally funded by some of these organizations. She's fucking something, y'all. I would look into Chino Valley Unified School District to see who their board president currently is and look into some of the things that she said and some of the things that she has implemented into their school district, like now putting in policies that out students to their parents. So when they're talking about not just winning big elections, they're talking about small elections. They're talking about school board elections, city officials. They want people everywhere in place to start to put their plans into motion. To me, I don't know that we're really going to end up in a Gilead type society, but they're trying, and we have to stay awake because
No, it's important. I mean, that's literally, they've been setting up the overturning of Roe v. Wade for 2 decades. Yeah. So they're playing for the long game, and we need to be aware of that. Like, when I say I don't think it's going to come down to a dystopian society like the Handmaid's Tale displays in all of the biblical extremism, I'm saying that because I believe in us, and I believe that we are aware enough to stop that from happening.
I don't want to speak for Gina. Correct me if I'm wrong when she's saying us. She does not mean the left. She does not mean Democrats, because I don't mean Democrats.
Mhm.
Because even though I vote Democratic, doesn't mean I love the administration we have in place right now. I just mean something that's not Christianity disguised as a political party.
Right.
Because that's what we have on the right now. It's not a political party. It is not separation of church and state. It's literally Christianity. It is a church organization that is trying to, like,
They want monotheism.
what is the term? It's like a Christian term. It's the like lion under sheep's clothing or something like that.
Wool in sheep's clothing.
Thank you.
There it is.
And it's just, it's so obvious, and I just wish that we had someone to rely on, but it's really there's not one person that's gonna come save us. It's gonna take every single person joining their school boards. It's gonna take people running for office in their cities. It's gonna take, reinvention of our armed forces and not our armed forces, but, like, police departments and shit.
Mm. Yeah, they definitely need to be restructured. And I know that after
George Floyd? You were talking about police.
oh yeah. Sorry for Mitch McConnelling back there.
Mm.
I feel like after George Floyd, there was a big call out for restructuring and recent
Police reform.
police reform.
That's the term. God, I'm not on it today.
There was a big call for restructuring the police, and they had some really great ideas. And recently, they've also released a story about the discovery of there being gangs in the LAPD.
That's not new, Gina.
It's not new, but these are things that once they're unearthed, they're getting unearthed.
But we've known that since the 80s.
It's,
There was proof they have tattoos.
right.
It's a real club when you have tattoos.
Yeah, it's only real. Like, they can't just have bandanas.
No.
I'm just saying, every day we're finding out more and more things about how dirty people in authority can be, especially the police, FBI, CIA, all that shit. We find out, it seems like there's a new story every day.
Mm-hmm.
And these places do need reform. Nobody's been keeping an eye on them. We haven't been keeping an eye on them. We've been too busy watching the Kardashians.
Ew.
Right. That is ew.
Ew.
We've been too busy caring about brand names and Instagram and making sure that our Instagram looks great so that everybody else knows that we're having a fantastic life and yada, yada, yada. But we have not been focusing on the elected government that we ourselves elect and the police force that are supposed to keep us safe that have been historically violent to people of color, but it's not been a big deal in my community because white people aren't getting hurt. So you're not going to see that on the news in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, because it's not a problem until it's a white people problem.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we're having a surge and people are communicating with each other more, like via TikTok or just the internet in general, we're starting to realize that it's horseshit. And the big takeaway here is we need to come together and fuck these motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean, I think my takeaway was, I think my aha moment was realizing that she wrote this book and was referencing, she said herself that there was nothing in the book that she didn't draw inspiration from real life. That was super startling because same as when we talked about the Diary of Anne Frank, if people want to deny that the Holocaust happened, I guess to put it nicely, I don't give a fuck what you don't care about, but if you're not going to believe that these things happened, why are you here? If you're not here to grow in the world, then why are you here? Like, it's one thing to believe in the Bible, and then it's another thing to be ignorant. And one of the quotes that I loved from the book that I literally wrote down, one of the few quotes from the book that I wrote down because there was so much good stuff that I literally was not able to bookmark everything. But at one point, one of the characters says, ignoring isn't the same as ignorance. You have to work at it. And that's basically where I think my start and stopping point is with where we're at today and how this book is kind of like, it almost feels like a fork in the road of where we could go. Either we're going to acknowledge where we're at in the world, either we're going to collectively do our best to move forward and learn from our mistakes and not accept governors that are going to try to tell us that slavery was positive or trying to ignore the Holocaust or trying to retract our bodily autonomy. Either we're going to move forward or you're choosing to fucking put your head in the sand. And that's where this book freaks me out because I'm like, there are a lot of people who are putting their head in the sand. I think I truly do believe you. And I really, really, really want to stress that. I really don't think that this is going to happen. I think there are more of us than there are the people who want women to be super oppressed and women to be raped ritualistically. But there's a lot. There's a lot of dudes out there who are like getting their egos hurt by getting turned away because the status quo of a man just being a man and showing up to a relationship isn't acceptable anymore. And they're not being better. And that's what freaks me out about this. There's so many little pinpoints in this book that I was like, ooh, that it like
It feels
pulled.
real.
It feels real. There is when they go to the Jezebels,
Mhm.
the commander takes her to like this like club, their
It's
little
like
club.
a bathhouse, if you will.
Yeah, it's like some of the girls there are prostitutes, some of the girls
Mhm.
there are, I don't know. She described like an array of people that were there. She's a handmaid who was smuggled in and she's wearing this dress that doesn't fit her with like bullshit makeup. And the way that the way that it's described is just like you can feel it. You can feel the smoke in the air. You can hear the drinks. You can hear how fucking excited he is to be there to show her off. And it's like they get this fucking hard on for having this control over women to just have them be their little play dolls because the world that they came from was a world where women held positions of power, had autonomy, had a right to say no. And these women, they don't have the option to say no. And that's what freaks me out about this book.
Yeah, if you want to hear any of those guys, you can they've all got podcasts. So don't you worry, they're out there. But the funny thing about that is, and a lot of the arguments that you'll hear them say is like, oh, it's just nature. We're stronger. You need us to protect you.
I
Right?
have a quote. I'm
Go for
telling
it.
you,
Go for it.
only
Go for
had
it.
a couple of quotes, and one of them was, so in Jezebels, because that one, it's when she sees Moira again, and I was just like super captivated by that whole scene. So she's talking to the commander, and they're talking about what this dynamic is, what's happening in there, like who these women are. And she's joking, and I think she's describing women in like negligee. Someone's like trying to be a Playboy bunny. I think it's Moira's trying to be a Playboy bunny. Someone's in a fucking swimsuit, and she's like, it's so weird. It's normal or like our old life of how we used to be, but it's not quite right because you don't see people in negligees and swimsuits in the same place, right? So they're
Yeah.
talking about that.
There's some in like cheerleader costumes.
Yeah.
It's
So
fetishized.
it totally is. And so he's talking about it and he's like, yeah, like women in the olden days used to have like different clothes. And so she goes, oh, so now you just have different women.
Yeah. So to fully lay that out, she was like, wow, I didn't think that any place like this exists anymore. And he's like, well, we can't go against nature. And
He says, nature demands variety for men. It stands to reason. It's part of the procreation strategy. It's nature's plan. Then it goes on to say, I didn't say anything, so he goes on. Women know that instinctively. Why did they buy so many different clothes in the old days? To trick the men into thinking there were several different women, a new one each day. He says this as if he believes it, but he says many things that way. Maybe he believes it, maybe he doesn't, or maybe he does both at the same time. Impossible to tell what he believes. So now we don't have different clothes. You merely have different women. This is irony, but he doesn't acknowledge it.
right. Well, it's interesting to me because so we've got the lonely man epidemic right now, right? Where 60% of men say that they are lonely. And then they always want to fall back on nature, right? Even though I can give you data that conflicts a lot of what they're saying, that there are examples in nature of women being the stronger, the faster, the one that hunts, and even homosexuality in a lot of cases. But beside from those little facts, if we are going to rest on nature, right? Like, oh, it's the natural order of things. Well, I look at it like this. I look at the fact that our society and human beings as a group have progressed, right? And women have progressed in a different direction. And not all men are prepared to progress with us, to rise to the occasion and be like, hey, okay, this is what women want now. So we're going to change who we are. So in essence, they're actually going against nature because no matter what, the sun will rise and the sun will set. There are lions out there that are going to hunt their prey, but if there's a drought that year, they have to adjust. So right now we're in an environmental situation where women have grown in a different direction and they are refusing to adjust. So in that way, they're going against nature. They're just refusing to do it because they're afraid to lose their own power. Most likely because they've treated us like shit for so long. It's probably really scary to be on the other side of that. But the funny thing is that women, when we do get true equality, because we will, for all the guys out there, just in case you're doubting that, that's where we're going. We're going to true equality for women, and we're going to get there. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be a month from now or even a year from now, but we're going to get there. And your way of thinking is going to be canceled.
Right. They want to talk about survival of the fittest, but then they don't want to fucking put in the work.
Thank you. Thank you for the survival of the fittest. That's what it was on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, like they want to talk about survival of the fittest, but they're not the fittest.
Right.
So they're not surviving and they're clinging.
They're literally not surviving. And if that is not a wake-up call, I don't know what else to do, because I fucking gave it a real ass shot with men, dude.
I know.
I really tried.
Yeah, you did not have the pick of the litter either.
I mean, like, it's so hard to try to be in a relationship with someone who refuses to grow in their emotional intelligence, who refuses to see you as an equal. And honestly, any of the guys that I've dated, I'm pretty sure they will all claim that they saw me as an equal. But honestly, did they?
No.
Do most men even like the women that they're with? Because I'm so tired of the trope of a dumb husband who doesn't know how to fucking do the dishes or clean the bathroom or do shit. Like, this is no shade at all to my family. I love my family so much, but my brother got a divorce and he just learned how to fucking do his laundry like 2 years ago. He's about to be 50. Love you if you're listening to this. I think you're an amazing human being who helped raise me. But it's just a sign of someone who, even though I do think my brother is a good person,
He's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. It's just an example of what he's been allowed to do.
Because he didn't have to fend for himself, because life is easier with women in your life because they tend to be so nurturing and caretaking. And dudes can't wrap their mind around the fact that we're just so fucking tired of it. In any relationship, there is give and take, but they don't meet you halfway most of the time.
No, you've got to make excuses for them. Or in my experience dating men, it was very competitive.
That's your problem.
Yeah, no, but in your stories, I see that as well. It's going into a relationship, going into a fight, going into an argument, I have to win this. And I feel like when I was with men, they were dead set on themselves being right all the time. And even if they didn't want to be right all the time, you've got your backhanded, like, old thing, like, oh, happy wife, happy life, meaning that they're just appeasing you, which I don't need you to appease me. I need you to validate my experience.
Right.
And if you're not, like, women they will bust through walls. They will knock down doors. They will defend their men and make excuses for men that men never asked them to make, just so that they can continue to hold space for them in their lives until the day that they're so exhausted that they can't. Women will do that instinctively because they fucking love you.
Mm-hmm.
And men only give a shit about whether or not you've warmed up their food. Like, come on. A woman in one day will show her love in 54 different ways, while a man shows his love by wanting to get down. That's the only way they know how to express their love, is by wanting to get down. Or, oh, I really love you today because you did something for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you did something for me.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate and love you. But if you don't do something for me, if you don't meet my standards for the day, then there's a problem.
Right.
And that's truly, I've also met a lot of good guys, but even the good ones, even the nice guys, have some very serious flaws sometimes. And that's scary. What's another religious parallel that occurred in the book?
So the whole religion is based off of Christianity. They get the women that are trained for their role as handmaids are taken to the Rachel and Leah Center, aka the Red Center, which is based off of the story of Jacob and Rachel. So if you're not familiar with the Bible, it is referred to as the original love triangle. Jacob was a man of God who wanted Rachel and he longed for her. And the funny thing is, I remember when I first heard the story of Jacob, Jacob is like the one that people were like, "Oh, he loved her so much that he worked so hard to get her."
Mhm.
And he had promised like her dad like 7 years of labor, and then the night that they're supposed to get married, the dad turns over her older sister and he's like, "Well, technically the oldest is supposed to get married first." So then Jacob works another 7 years to now get Rachel. So Leah is his first wife, which is her sister. They have something like 7 kids together, but he doesn't give a shit about any of them. He
Mhm.
wanted Rachel. So when Rachel comes on, they are together, but she is referred to as, if I'm not mistaken, in the Bible it says God.
So wait, he just leaves his family?
No, 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 he has both of them.
Oh, so he gets all the girls.
He gets all of it, and he has concubines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I don't remember truly, but she can't conceive children.
Mm.
So then she gives him her handmaid as their in The
Mhm.
Handmaid's Tale. That's kind of where she pulls this from, this idea that, well, you love me so much, like the commanders love their wives so much, but I can't have children because it's always the fucking woman's fault
Right.
for some reason. Even remember when kings existed and shit
Oh,
and they
no.
wanted sons, they'd always be like, well, this woman's not giving me son. Fucking newsflash, the men are the one who determine the gender of the baby. So you're
Right.
just fucking shooting girls out. But same. It's like it's always put on the woman. They can't have babies. So he gets just run through all these girls
Mhm.
in
Shooting blanks,
hmm No, he had children with his first wife, her sister,
but she couldn't do it.
but she couldn't. No.
So
So God sews up her womb, is I think
so
the verbiage.
the woman who cannot have the children gets to make up, quote, make up for her lack of ability to provide family and has to offer somebody else to have sex with
So that they can breed.
so that they can have kids. That feels godly.
How does none of this feel icky when you guys read the Bible? Because, well, I'll say this. When I would go to church, they wouldn't give you the full context. It was always like, well, Jacob loved Rachel so much.
Mm,
But when you read the details of it, it's
I'm glad you brought that up because in the book, they actually do not allow people to read the Bible.
they don't allow them to read at all. Well, we haven't touched on everything in the book yet, but there's so much. They're not allowed to read. They go to the grocery store, everything has images on it. The Marthas, which are their maids, essentially,
Mhm.
they have these like tropes for women that they fit into very specifically. And it's kind of like the baby Madonna idea, like you're either the slutty promiscuous one who like they take to their little club.
Right.
You're an unwoman, which is fucking loved it. The unwomen
Yeah,
or the ones
They
who
go to the
they
colonies.
go to the colonies, they either can't have kids or they've been too rebellious or they've done plenty of other things or whatever. Then there are the handmaids, which are supposed to be pure. And we see both in the book, in the show, I know we weren't going to talk about it, but they're just women who have had their spirit beat out of them, who just have a fertile womb. That's all they are. That's
Yeah.
why when they are punished, they can take their eyes, they can take their hands, because they're nothing but a walking uterus.
Yeah, they're not allowed to have any rights. They're actually not even supposed to look people in the eye. They always look down, and that visual is shown in the show itself.
And then the wives are even dressed in blue. They're more pure.
They have more
They're
of a say, and they're allowed to abuse the handmaids.
they're just not allowed to kill them.
Yeah, but they can do whatever they want aside from that. The Marthas, which are barren women who do all the cooking and the cleaning and such. Basically, they've compartmentalized a Christian society in this dystopian book. And it's terrifying to read when you really visualize it when you're in the moment because these girls go through, even though it is like a book of fiction, they go through a lot of violence if they don't go along with the program. And if they're not a true believer, they can go and beat up your feet. It was one example. Take out your eye. It's met with violence. The belief is met with violence if you do not believe.
Well, Atwood took inspiration from the Salem witch trials,
Hmm.
which again, Christians just being scared of non-Christian things.
Right.
I know that I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but it's just true.
Well, the conversation was going to surround this because that's what the book is surrounded by.
Right.
That's the basis of the book. So currently, right now, the book is banned in Texas and in Florida, which
Shocker.
not a surprise. The usual suspects. And just a quick little nugget is in the states that are banning abortion, teen birth rates are twice as high. And while fewer than 1 in 10 people live in Texas, 1 in 7 of all maternal deaths took place in Texas, which has the most limited abortion access in the country. And that is a direct result in the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which it's really easy to disassociate when you're talking about this in the abstract. But 30% of babies born in a state with abortion bans are more likely to die in the first month of life. So Roe v. Wade, to me, directly correlates with this book because it is our first step towards a dystopian society. And they promised us that it wasn't going to happen when these Trump-appointed Supreme Court justices got in, you know?
So they promised all these things, but
So
Project 2025 shows us that it's just a lie.
it's been a lie. And I know a lot of conservative people out there who, not a lot, I know some conservatives out there who are my friends and care a lot about me. The funny thing is most of the time I talk to them about these problems, these
Fears.
fears or these legislation bills, and they have no idea that they exist. They have no idea. And they tell me, to my face at least, that they don't believe in that. That's important to them, that that stuff doesn't happen. But then I actually had to have this, I wouldn't say a discussion, but my mother and I went back and forth because I told her I wanted to leave the country for a couple years. She asked why. One of the reasons why is because I just don't want to live in a country that I need to worry about this all the time. And she was like, well, why? She votes Republican. So I said, well, it's people like you. And I know for sure that she doesn't read up on the issues or the bills and things like that. She doesn't know the effects of her voting and how it's going to affect me. And I had to explain to her that she's voting against my rights. She's voting against my relationship, and she is not looking out for my safety. Though my mom does love me and she approves of Adri and my lifestyle, she's still very deep in Christianity, and I can so strongly feel that that holds her back from supporting me.
And this is what I mean. This exactly is where it doesn't make sense to be a Christian, to read the Bible, to read the commandments of obviously don't murder, but also do unto others what the golden rule of don't
Eye
do
for an eye.
Yeah.
Do unto others as you would like done unto yourself.
But even like the Sermon on the Mount from Jesus, where he's advocating for the poor, he's talking down on the church, he's pointing out the irony of their selfishness and their hoarding of wealth. Are we not seeing the correlation? Like that's where, and again, I'll give it to the people who go to church and maybe they don't give them a full story, but read the Bible on your own. The more I actually read the Bible, the less I believed in Christianity.
Well, I think that's
most people.
That's what they're afraid of.
It just makes me really sad because,
well, don't be sad. We're experiencing the greatest disconnect from Christianity in our lifetime we're seeing because
No, but it is sad because so many people find so much comfort and solace in religion. And I don't want to take that from anyone, but you're being lied to.
Mhm.
What your faith and the political party that's affiliated with it, they're not the same.
No.
And real people are getting hurt. Like
Your friends.
we don't live in Gilead. We don't have this problem. But fuck, dude. Do we not remember a couple years ago when the Trump administration was separate? I mean, and I know that the Biden administration did it too, for anyone who wants to give me that shit. Just in general, the politicians that were separating families at the border, and they still have thousands of kids that are unaccounted for from years ago.
Mm.
Are we not going to talk about the fact that women in LA were forcibly sterilized? We're not going to talk about the fact that women in the like post World War One were forcibly sterilized and held in detention centers under the quote unquote American plan. I didn't know about this until we read this book, and I was doing a little bit of research on what the inspiration was. After World War One, thousands of women, tens of thousands of women were incarcerated, held in detention centers. They were in jails and like workhouses, and they were treated with arsenic and mercury and sometimes sterilized because they thought that these women were promiscuous and had STIs that they would pass on to the soldiers. Like, are you fucking for real? Like, for real? No, for real. Like in LA, during post World War II, Japanese people were held in internment camps, and Christians knew it, and they didn't do shit to stop it. It's not just on Christians, but we are in a society that's holding on by a fucking thread of morality. And every day I see that thread unweaving just a little bit more. It freaks me out. And I really, really want to believe that we're never going to live in a world like this. But this book and the conversation that it sparks, this is why shit like this is important. And this is why I'm so proud to be doing something like this. Because imagine if people couldn't read this. Because however good the story is, the most important part came afterwards and going, well, what inspired this? And actually reading the biblical parts of it and the historical parts of it and going like, oh, she was inspired by the Salem witch trials and the persecution of women that just weren't conforming to norms.
As women in society, we've always been held to both a double standard and being a sub society. You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous that we both have to be perfect and also be deemed as less than. It's terrifying that the United States of America allowed people to, we ripped families apart. These are human beings. Some people, not all Christians, but some people show up on their Sundays and doing their Sunday best, and they hear their pastors talking about forgiveness and love and acceptance and the word of God. And then they turn a blind eye to the fact that our United States government let kids chill in camps and get sexually abused for fucking years.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. They forcefully sterilize women. That's fucking third worldly. It's terrible. It hurts.
All of the legislation that's going into place right now, if you think it doesn't affect you, it does. I don't care who's listening. If you think it doesn't affect you, it does. On July 3rd of this year in Richmond, Indiana, a cisgender woman was stabbed to death because they thought she was transgender.
I remember that story.
And she wasn't. She was a straight Black woman. Black women have historically been accused of being manly, of having non-conforming, stereotypically like conforming to European beauty standards.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't think I am, though. Maybe I am. But to me, this feels like a way to get around it. Going, oh, I thought she was transgender and I killed her. because now people know that anyone within the LGBTQ plus community can be an easy target because the Supreme Court's not protecting us. They're not protecting women. So right now, it's just marginalized communities. This book was an example of it coming for all women. I really do believe that we have to be really diligent about our morality and our standards and what we're going to turn a blind eye to, because there's not a lot more that we can turn our backs to and ignore, like it's not going to catch up to us one day.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's never a time to turn a blind eye to the direction that your country is going, but it's so important right now more than ever, because when you have a strong message and when things start to change, you also have strong pushback. And right now we're in the middle of there being very, very strong pushback. This 2025 situation is the biggest indicator that if we let things snowball, they will punch us in the face later on.
Jesus Christ.
Like, that's just the truth of it. So let's just all be aware. Let's vote the way we need to vote. And honestly, what my dream, kind of going back to the Oprah Rock video, is that we all get so pissed off at the economy that we finally band together and take down the fucking government, and we stop Mitch McConnelling and like zoning out on what's going on and taking like brain pauses, and we start going, fuck you guys and your policies and your power and your billionaire corporations and your billionaire backing, and you're poisoning our fucking food. Fuck you guys, really. The US dollar is not backed by gold or silver, it's backed by our taxes. And in case you didn't know that, if that's any indication of how much power we have, let's use it. Let's put term limits. I'm tired. I was just having this conversation the other day with a coworker. I'm tired. If you're 60 and up at this point in time, I don't want you in political office. I don't want you there. I'm sure that people 60 and above can still be very sharp-witted and have things to contribute. But if you're not Bernie, I don't want you. Like, if you don't know how to send an email, you don't need to be there. If you don't know what a PDF is, I don't want you in there. If you call TikTok Tic Tac, I don't want you in there.
I know that's like really anecdotal, but it's true.
It's no, no longer do I want to be subjected to the thoughts and beliefs of people who are not dealing with the same thing that I'm dealing with every day. If you don't know what trends on social media, or if you aren't concerned with the BRICS nations, if you don't trade with Bitcoin, if you have no fucking clue who social influencers are and what effect they have on the US, if you're not in touch with all these things, some of my favorite people in Congress are the ones that are actually on TikTok utilizing it as the tool that it is, or on social media in general. But if you don't know what all those things are, thank you so much. You do not deserve to represent me, because you don't represent me. You don't represent anybody with my knowledge base. You don't represent anybody in the society that I'm growing into. You don't represent me, and I will not elect you. I will not elect you if you can't resonate with what I'm dealing with from day to day. And those motherfuckers have been in there so long, they're so out of touch. All they fucking do is listen to their PR people and say, hey, people on the left support abortions, so you need to support abortions more. We've looked at the stats, and it says that the demographic is really leaning towards this, so now you need to support it. I don't want that. I want somebody who goes in there with their own sets of moral beliefs, goes in there to make a change, and wants to tell the fucking truth. I think we're ready for the truth. I think in the past, politicians were not allowed to tell the truth, and I think we're ready for it. And anybody 60 and over is just not there.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But all of this relates to the book, because this book demonstrates extremism, which could happen if the wrong moves are made, or the right moves are made, depending on which.
I'm just a millennial hoping that Gen Z comes in.
I'm ready for Gen A. They're gonna fuck shit up
Listen, dude.
in a good way.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, I just want you guys to know, if you're 21 and under and you're listening to this, first of all, welcome. Hey, hope you think I'm cool.
So happy that you're here. I'm your biggest fan.
Seriously. I have such high hope for that is one. Okay, so I'm a pessimist in a lot of ways, but I believe in the next generations. And I no shit talking on a millennial. I'm a millennial, but we tried and we're tired. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to fit into the snowflake stereotype of a millennial, but kind of. I'm just tired now. I'm tuckered out. We went to school, we got jobs, we did all the things, and we can't buy a fucking house. So at this point, I don't have the knees to deal with this shit.
You don't have knees like Megan, huh?
I don't have knees like Megan.
Yeah.
I will cheer for you. I will support in any way that I can, but I'm super excited for the generations that are coming behind us. And I'm hoping in some small way, we as millennials helped pave the way.
Yeah. I'm tired, but I'm tired because I've been rebelling against this bullshit my whole entire life.
I know.
I've been like
almost sad for you.
Yeah. Fucking 9/11. Like everybody wants to fall back on that, but you know what? Millennials, phenomena. Millennials, we did a lot, and I'm really proud of us. I'm not coming from it from a passive place. We've literally been fighting. I've been fighting since I was born on the issues that were important to me. And I will continue to do so. And this podcast is another form of me continuing to do that. But I'm so excited because you guys are just coming in, not having to go through the life experiences that we did to organize our thoughts and feelings, because we were raised by people who were trying to embed this shit into our head, indoctrinated with all this fucking America, Christianity, fuck yeah, women belong here, woman and a man, blah, blah, blah. And we did the damn thing. We did as much as we fucking could. And I'm proud of us. Gen Z, I'm so sorry that you are going to be viewed as the savior generation, but you truly are going to be that. I know it's a lot to put on your shoulders, but you guys are already kicking ass. I'm proud of you guys. And Gen Alpha, as soon as you come in, I can't wait. That's all. That's the best I can put that. I can't wait for all you guys to really get in here and we start to push those motherfucking boomers and Gen X, which was my mother and my dad, their generation. I'm tired of those motherfuckers also. They didn't do jack shit, but just lay down the groundwork for us to get.
Oh my God. I didn't tell you this, but my brother, literally, I was talking to him yesterday. Again, Sam, hi, if you're listening, I love you so much. You're a sweet angel baby. However, he was like, Gen Xers were the best generation ever. And I was like, listen, I love you so much, but I'm not the best generation. And I can admit that. Just don't live in the denial portion of it.
Best generation.
I was like, oh, that's really sweet.
Look, boomers, you're mostly pieces of shit. I'm not going to lie.
Oh my God, Gina.
I'm not going to lie to you about that. You guys are mostly pieces of shit, but I understand why you turned into pieces of shit. It's because you had absolutely no direction and you were just living off trauma. Gotcha.
They really were, though.
Right.
Really,
Gen Xers, I'll give you this.
That's true.
You guys tried.
You're right.
Yeah. Gen X, you guys tried. All right. I'll give you that. But for the most part, nobody raised you. So you guys were just like juvenile delinquents running around having kids and then talking shit to us. That was your life. Millennials, we brought you avocado toast. And then we got made fun of for it, for wanting to live a peaceful life. Gen Z, you guys are going to overturn this shit and you're going to change it. And Gen Alpha, you guys are going to make this world an amazing place. But boomers, you guys suck. And I want you guys all out of office.
I don't wish ill upon a boomer.
They're
I mean,
they're
I
like
feel like
80.
I know. I know
You don't have to wish ill. They're already ill. They have arthritis. Like, what do you mean? Fucking- They have liver spots. You don't have to wish them ill. They are ill.
I'm just saying, I know that a lot of this podcast is me going like, I don't hate Christians. I don't hate boomers. I don't wish anything bad, but just move the fuck out of the way.
No, let's call a spade a spade. Fuck you guys. You've really caused us a lot of problems, and now we're going to have to clean up after you. And we try all the time, and you still fight us. And books like The Handmaid's Tale really outline what could happen if we just let you motherfuckers run free. And it's pulled from actual scenes of the Bible, like actual quotes from the Bible.
I know.
You know, it's. But aside from all the politics and stuff, even though this is always where this was going to go because this is what this book is about, this is the reason why it's banned. They can throw it all on like sexual misconduct and all that bullshit they like to throw out there. But the fact is, they don't want kids critical thinking. This is a book that it inspires so much thought. I could sit here and talk to you about this book for 2 more hours.
I know.
So of
I know.
course, take it out. Take it out. Don't indoctrinate your kids by keeping them from critical thinking. That's what's happening here. Let's call a spade a spade.
Mhm.
Right? So if you just let your kids, consume only the things that you control, that's called indoctrination. If you let them critically think and then meet their questions with, responsible responses, opportunities for learning and growth, letting them be who they are, like, that's one thing. And then they want to go around and be like, oh, colleges are indoctrinating our children and keep our kids out of schools because I don't believe in what they're pushing. What they're pushing is education. And the less educated you are, the more you can critically think, the less conservative you tend to be. And that's not a coincidence. The biggest attribute with conservatives that I know is that they're scared. That's why they have all their guns. I literally heard a conservative the other day tell me that the reason why they didn't mandate the vaccine was because Americans have too many guns.
That's not why. they
I'm
would
like,
do it.
okay, if they really wanted to mandate a vaccine, they're not afraid of your little guns or your little AKs, I assure you.
Yeah. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
I really love when people are like, they can just overthrow the government.
You gave it a shot.
Like real casually, they say it. I know it, you can hear it in my voice, but I'm
Yeah.
just so tired. I'm
Yeah.
like,
That's cute. Yeah, even you can't overturn the shit. It's not for you. All right? You 50-year-old motherfucking Greg sitting on the couch with your pot belly and your little AK-47 that you tell all your dads and your little fucking cargo shorts and your New Balance shoes. And you go out there and you have your little practice old man militia. Guess what? It's not happening for you.
it's not.
And it's all right that it's not going to happen because nothing bad's going on here. We're just growing in a direction that you're not comfortable with. And it's okay, Todd. You're going to be all right because none of us are going to come after you the way that you've come after women.
That.
Get
That
it?
so much. Because we're sitting here talking about how fucked up it is that women were forcibly sterilized and how terrifying it is to read a book that's based on history and the Bible. And yet, as much as I'm annoyed with dudes, as much as I can talk shit about the dudes I've dated, I don't sit here going like, but they should all be corralled somewhere in a fucking prison somewhere. We would not do that to them.
No. Never has the thought entered my mind that we should put them in some big encampment and sterilize them.
Right? Like
Even though now that I'm thinking about it, that would do the world a fucking favor, Jim.
yeah, I guess there's no love like Christian love, right? That they would see people get tormented and pulled apart and executed in front of other people. And I just don't think that's where I'm at. That's not
That's
how
not the
I
way.
think. It's not. No, it's not. And I don't feel safe around people who think like that. all the while knowing that if the tables were flipped and the woke left had their way, they wouldn't fucking force it. They just want to be happy. They just want to be able to live.
In the name of Michael Scott, the turntables.
Yeah. I loved this book.
It was beautifully written.
I loved everything it had us thinking about. I loved doing the research on it. Content aside, the writing is chef's kiss.
It's the goal.
It's so good. So good. I don't talk about this often, but I, in a lifetime ago, wanted to be a writer who wrote a book. Who knows? Who knows?
She's an amazing writer to everyone out there.
But her writing is beautiful. It's vivid. It's emotion evoking. And what other kind of writing is there?
Oh, it's visualizing and symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
I was enamored with it.
And then what we get to talk about around it, awesome.
Yeah.
Super relevant even today. I'm so proud of how far we've come.
Can't wait to see where we're going.
I guess I believe in the possibility of a future that is not Gilead.
Well,
that's all I can do, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you believe it, it'll manifest itself. So I truly think if you sit around and fantasize about a dystopian society, you're going to add to the energy that's going to go with that dystopian society. But if we can all focus on course correcting and not allowing this beautifully written book to actualize itself, we do need to focus on the solutions. We need to focus on the possibilities of positivity. And that's where I'm at. I believe in us. And I think that reading books like this is important. I walked away from this book a different person than I was before I read it. And that's a big deal.
I don't know how many of you out there are listening to us every week. And I hope that there are at least a few of you. And for as long as this podcast is a thing, I just want to thank you, because this is truly such a cool experience and kind of a dream come true to just get to read books that I've always wanted to read with a purpose and a timeline so that I can then talk to people about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I get to have a book club with the woman that I love more than anybody else in this whole entire world, and all of you.
Maybe one day when we have like a community big enough, and if you guys are interested in that, reach out to us on TikTok. But yeah, let's do like a book club. Let's do like a one where everyone can read along with us. And then when the next episode is out, you guys just get to give us your feedback. And we can't wait to hit 1,000 people on TikTok so we can go live. Mm-hmm. That'll be cool.
Oh yeah. As soon as we hit 1,000 on TikTok, I'm going to start doing lives for our recordings. So we would love to do that. And I know that we've used some really strong language, and I don't take back anything I said, but I do want to say ultimately, thank you so much for listening. And even if you disagree with what we said, and even if I disagree with you and your lifestyle, we love you.
We love you. And that brings us to the end of another episode. If you found this discussion insightful and thought-provoking, don't forget to show your support. You can find all the links and references mentioned in today's episode in the description down below. Whether you're looking for articles, books, or additional resources to explore, we've got you covered.
And if you haven't already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to us. It's the best way to stay connected and engaged. It gets our books out there into the places where maybe they might not be reachable because they are banned.
And if you're really passionate about what we're doing and you want to take your support to the next level, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page.
You'll be gaining access to exclusive bonus content, which I don't post to the regular platforms. And you'll even have the opportunity to vote for the next book that we read and suggestions for topics and future episodes. Thanks again for tuning into the Band Together podcast. You can follow us on TikTok. Your feedback and involvement make this podcast possible. So keep reading between the lines.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.